Alright, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah. Wa ba'd. So, before we begin, can I just ask everyone to move closer towards the center? If that's possible. Which is easier for me to kind of see the audience here. So we could have everyone move closer to the center. Lisa. Thank you. If you want to. Not force you to. Inshallah. Okay. So we're going to be starting with Prophet Hud, and then we're going to move to Prophet Salih today. And inshallah, it's important to know Prophet Hud and Salih because for some reason, most Muslims forget about these two prophets. And I think there's two reasons why they forget about these two prophets. Most people, you ask them, who's Prophet Nuh? They'll kind of know. If you hear Nuh, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? A boat. Good. If you hear Adam, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Apple.
An apple, or technically just a tree. We don't know if it was an apple or not. If you hear Musa, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Quran.
Stick. Parting the sea, right? If you hear Isa, what's the first thing you hear? What comes to your mind? Huh? Your friends, okay. What else? Isa? Walking on. That's a Christian miracle. Huh? Maryam alayhi salam. Okay, yeah, right. And then what Christians believing about Jesus not being true. Prophet Ibrahim, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Idols, right? What about the idols? Breaking the idols, exactly. Very good. So these are some of the things. But when people come across Hud and Salih, for some reason, you go to most Muslims and they're like, don't remember anything about those two prophets. And there's two reasons why. Number one is because their stories are fairly short, and so they're not as well known. People don't really remember the details, even though there's mentioned a lot in the Quran. The second reason, who knows what the second reason is? Who can guess what the second reason is? Anyone? They did not confuse them with the hudhud bird. But that was a good guess. Good joke, actually. It's because they're not mentioned in the Bible. And all the other prophets are mentioned in the Bible. But these two, and Shu'aib, debatedly will cover him, are not mentioned in the Bible. And the question is why? Why are they omitted? Why are they skipped from being in the Bible? It's a long story. The short answer is because they were Arab prophets. They were in Arabia. And because they were in Arabia, their story was removed from the Bible. They did not want to keep it there. The same way that the story of Ismail has mostly been removed and altered in the Bible because he's from the other lineage, the same thing happened with Hud and Salih. So it's pretty important to get a refresher about Prophet Hud because a lot of Muslims tend to forget about who these two prophets are, Hud and Salih. So there was a tribe of people, they were called Ba'ad, and they lived in the southern part of Arabia. What's the southern part of Arabia called today? Anyone know? Anyone from that region? Anyone ever been to this cafe? The cafe that we go to afterwards. What's the cafe called? Sana'a Cafe. Which country is that? Yemen. Okay, so southern Arabia is the region of Yemen. And that's exactly where they're coming from. Right, so now when you think of the coffee place, you're going to think of the people of Ad. And you're going to see what happened to them. So these people, they were blessed with a lot of children. They had a lot of animals. They had a lot of crops. They were a very powerful civilization. They built lots of gardens and springs. Even though they're in the middle of the desert, they were a very prosperous civilization for their time. So they had all of these blessings. And they were strong people, and they could fight. But they did not thank Allah very much. So they thought, like many other people who have a lot of blessings, they get a lot of power, they say, we earned all of this on our own. It's all of our own accomplishments. They were not grateful that Allah has given them all these blessings. Just like the people of Prophet Nuh before them, they also worshipped idols as well. And so they didn't learn the lesson from the people of Prophet Nuh. They probably heard the stories that the community has been destroyed, there's been a flood. They did not learn the lessons that they were supposed to learn. So they were a very powerful people. They were strong. They were well built. They were not giants though. Some people say that like they were giants and they're like 100 feet tall or something like that. There's no basis for that in the Quran or in historical, archaeological data. But they were strong people and they had weapons and they would go around and they would dominate all the other cities. And they were very clever. They were very good at warfare. Everyone was afraid of them. So they worship idols on the one hand. Number two, they go and oppress everyone else around them. And when they go into a town or a city, they don't just take it over. They would destroy it. They would just destroy everything, just kill everyone. That's not what you normally do when you're an empire. You take over other cities, you make those people work for you. These people, they just wiped out the population. They just didn't care. So they were very oppressive people. And so they thought they're so powerful. They thought, no one's going to be able to punish us. We've done all these things. No one can hold us accountable. And they forgot that Allah is the one who gave them this ability. They forgot that Allah is the one who is more powerful than them and He can hold them accountable. So they're going around and building these large homes. They're building giant castles. They're really clever, very intelligent when it comes to building things, when it comes to warfare and war tactics. But that intelligence did not help them understand that you shouldn't be praying to an idol. So we talked last time with Prophet Nuh about the different types of intelligence. There is architectural intelligence, there's war intelligence, there's mathematical intelligence, and then there's moral and spiritual intelligence. People can be so clever, they can have 5 PhDs, they can solve all the math equations and everything super fast. They can work like an AI chip in their brain, but then at the end of the day, they go do something so ridiculous that they bow down to an idol. So they do not have moral intellect. So these people exactly the same way. So Allah decided that these people need help. Just like the people of Nuh, Allah decides we're going to send a messenger to them. So Allah chose a man by the name of Hud. Alright, with a ha, not a ha. Hud. So Hud was the best person among these people. Why? Number one, he didn't worship idols. Number two, he was a very nice person. He didn't oppress people. He wasn't in the army going and killing other people or something like that. And Hud came from a respected family. So these people knew him. They know him and they respect him and they know that he's a wise person. So they liked him. And so when Allah chose him, Hud had a mission. Hud told his people, you need to stop worshipping idols. You should only worship Allah. Allah has blessed you with so much. How can you worship these idols that you made yourself and then you're praying to them? This doesn't make any sense. You guys need to stop doing this. So what do his people say? Just like the people of Nuh before him, they say the same kind of arguments. He says, you know what? No, you're a foolish man. You're the dumb one. And they say, no, you're lying. We think you're just making up this whole thing. So Hud tries to convince his people. He says, you know what? You should stop doing this. This doesn't make sense. It's not right. And then he had to remind them, I'm not asking you for any money. I don't have any other reason to teach this message. You're not going to lose all your money if you follow me. You don't need to worry about that. So what are they afraid of? They shouldn't be afraid to give up their idols. Nothing's going to happen to them. So they came up with another excuse. Just like people of Prophet Nuh, they came up with one excuse after another after another. People of Hud, they responded with an excuse and they said, these people are named Ad, right? The people of Ad. So they come up and they say, our gods are angry with you. Our idols, they're mad at you. Because you're telling them, this new message that you're coming with, our gods got mad at you and they made you crazy. And that's why you're saying what you're saying. So he's like, you know what? These idols, they're just stones. They can't hurt anybody. So he's not afraid. He's like, go ahead. And they say, we're going to tell our idols to get you. And he's like, go ahead. The idols are not going to harm me. They're not going to be able to do anything to me. Allah is going to protect me. I'm not worried about it. So they said, you know what? We are never going to give up our idols. We will always follow what our parents taught us to do. And we're going to do exactly what they said. We're not going to think for ourselves. So they started making fun of Hud. They said, you know what? If you're telling the truth, then you said Allah's going to punish us. Go ahead. Tell Allah to bring the punishment. We're waiting. We want to see it. Where's the punishment? Why isn't it here yet? Come on, where is it? And so Hud responds and he says, you know what? Only Allah knows when it's going to happen. Imagine you're in Hud's position. You're telling people, hey, Allah's in control. You're going to be in trouble if you don't listen. And what is the response? The response is, okay, go ahead, send the punishment. We want to see the miracle right now. Show it to us. Oh, it's not coming yet? And of course, Hud is not in control of bringing any miracle to them except when Allah wants. So imagine what he's feeling. He's getting insulted, he's getting mocked, he's getting embarrassed, but he has nothing else to say except, I don't get to decide this. Allah is going to decide whatever happens when it's going to happen. My job is only to warn you. And so that's all he could do. There's nothing else he could do. And sometimes that happens when you're talking to somebody about Islam, and they're like, oh yeah, show me this proof and show me that proof. And you're like, cause a miracle to come down. If God exists, have him send a lightning bolt down right now. You're like, I can't do that. I don't have that ability. That's the unfair ask. But that's what people will sometimes throw your way. That's exactly what they did to Prophet Hud. So finally, he's been calling them for a long time. Allah gives us the summary of his story. And it had not rained for quite some time. So the people were waiting for rain. The people of Ad, they need rain because you can't have a civilization prosper without rain. Because what does the rain do? It gives you water. The water is going to help your crops grow. You're going to get food. You need water, you need all of these things. So there was like a little bit of a drought. Rain wasn't coming for a while, and they were waiting and they were hoping that it's going to be rain. Finally, after many days, they saw a rain cloud in the sky, and they saw it coming towards the city. So they were very happy. And what does a rain cloud look like? Most people, because we don't really look up in nature, we may not know what a rain cloud looks like. Does anyone know what a rain cloud looks like? How can you tell that there's going to be a rain cloud in the sky? It's gray and black. And it's bigger, okay? It's good. Rather than just being white, it's going to be colored. So yeah, I'm not going to take over the world, but yeah, it's bigger. So yes, so you can tell that this cloud most probably is going to have rain. So they see it coming towards their city and they're like, finally, we've been waiting for exactly this. So they were so happy. But Hud realized with revelation from Allah, this is not a happy rain cloud. He said, this is a punishment cloud. Meaning this city is going to be in big trouble. So he asked them one last time, he says, you guys need to really change your ways. They're like, no, we don't believe anything you're saying. We got our rain. We're going to have our prosperous civilization. We're going to be fine. So Allah told Hud, take the believers, whoever believes with you, and leave the city. As soon as they left the city, Allah sent a really strong wind. Strong wind can be either a hurricane or a tornado or a mixture of both or some type of superstorm. So this massive storm comes and just starts blowing across the entire city. And it's so powerful, like the sand is flying up in the air because they're living in the desert. Sand is flying up in the air and it's just hitting them, pounding them, not for one day, not for 2 days, for an entire week. 7 days, this storm is just completely destroying every single thing. And so this wind, one of the things that a storm can do, part of what a tornado can do, it can even pick objects up, pick people up. If you've ever seen a tornado, you could probably watch on YouTube or something. Tornado can pick up a car. Like it'll come, if it gets in a car, it'll pick up the car into the air and then it'll slam it back down on the floor because the way the wind is swirling. That's exactly how Allah described what happened. Some people, they were literally picked up in the air by this wind, by the tornado, and then they were slammed down back into the ground. And so this storm destroyed the entire city. All the people who were left, all of them were dead. Their houses completely destroyed, even though they built them really strong. They were completely wiped out, completely destroyed. So this powerful city of the people of Ad was completely wiped out. It's no more. And so now, the only thing that remained were these sand hills over them, and we just know about a little remnants that were left over, and that's it. There's nothing else. So many other cities that are not prominent cities anymore, you still see the ruins. People go to like Rome and they look at like the pillars and they look at what's left of those cities. The city of the people of Ad completely wiped out. There's like nothing left at all. And so this is why Allah put a surah in the Quran known as, does anyone know what the name of the surah is? That means sand hills. What's left over from the remnants of the people of Ad after they were destroyed. Anybody? Al-Ahqaf. Right? Al-Ahqaf means the wind-curved sand hills. And what is a sand hill? If you ever been ATVing, like sand dunes, that's what's left of the people. That, like, their entire city, it just became sand, just like little lumps of sand. There's nothing left, completely wiped out. So this is the story of the people. I'm going to skip the question. This is the story of the people of Ad and prophet. Which quick review? Which prophet was sent to the people of Ad? Hud. Which region were they in? Yemen. Very good. Okay. All right. Moving on to the next prophet, and then I'll take some questions. The prophet Salih. Okay. So Prophet Salih was sent to the people of Thamud. So the first one was the people of Ad, Prophet Hud. This one was the people of Thamud, and the prophet's name was Salih. So they lived in northern Arabia. The previous one lived in southern Arabia. And so this group of Thamud, they came a while after the people of Ad. And so they lived in northern Arabia, and they were also very similar. They were a prosperous civilization. They were very good at construction. They built a lot of castles. They built a lot of palaces. But one of the unique things about them was they would build their homes inside of the mountain. So they would carve inside the mountain. And so if anyone has ever been in the area of Jordan, if you've ever been to a place called Petra, has the best remnants of some of these. So these are part of the people of Thamud. So they were not specifically in the Petra area, but they were right next to it. So they would build their homes inside the mountain, and then they also had stuff outside of the mountain as well. So they would carve inside the mountain their homes. So they're very advanced. Like technologically, if somebody said, okay, I'm going to have you go in the desert or have you go by yourself and start your own civilization, how would you carve into the mountain without any technology? Like, it would be hard. It requires some pretty advanced technology to do that. So they were a very advanced civilization for their time. The way that they would carve, and they had pillars, and we're talking really high into the mountain. It's pretty impressive. But they had all these blessings. They had this technology. They had this powerful army. They had all of these blessings, but they were not thankful to Allah. They did exactly what the people of Ad did before. They did exactly what the people of Nuh did before. They started worshipping statues. And it's ironic, especially for them. They're such expert carvers. Like, they're so good at making buildings into the mountain. And then they'll go and they'll carve a little statue, and then they'll worship this exact same thing that they carved. So it's very strange. So they became very arrogant. They would go around oppressing other people, just like the people of Ad did as well before. So Allah chooses to send them a messenger too. So He chooses Salih. And Salih was a very well-respected person. He didn't worship any idols. But in addition to that, Salih was looked up by his people for being really, really intelligent. They used to think that Salih is going to grow up and become one of maybe the leaders of those people. He's going to become rich. He's going to become famous. But Salih didn't care. Being a prophet is more important than being a leader or being famous or being wealthy or being popular, all of those things. So Allah chose Salih. Salih has a mission. He goes and tells his people, my people only pray to Allah. You do not have any other God besides Him. The people said, no. We're never going to give up our idols. We love our idols, and we're not going to stop. So it goes back and forth, right? They make the same arguments that the people of Ad made. And so instead of repeating the same details, Allah doesn't give you the same details over and over and over again exactly. He summarizes it in the Quran and then gives you something different. So what was different about them? So they started making some of the same arguments. They said, don't listen to this guy. He's just a man like you. There's nothing special about him. And one of the things that they criticized was, he's saying that when you die,
You're going to come back to life and you're going to be judged, and there's going to be like another life. There's going to be Jannah or Jahannam, and there's going to be another life that's going to happen. They said, that's ridiculous. We don't believe in that. There's only this world. Nothing's going to happen once we die. This man is just lying. And then they started making fun of him even more. And they said, Salih, we feel really sorry for your parents. Your parents invested so much time and effort in you. You had the ability to become like something very important, and look at you. You know what? You became nothing. You're just sitting there and you're going and telling us about Allah and idols and we shouldn't worship. You could have been so rich. You could have been such an important leader in our community, but now you're just talking about all this religious stuff. So sadly, this is what happens to a lot of people, is that they're really good at school, get into a good university, they're doing well, and then they start to go to the masjid. They start to go to young professionals. They start to go to Islamic classes. And what happened? This is so common. Parents are like, what are you doing? You need to focus in school. You need to be the best. You need to get this career. You need to get this degree. And they get so disappointed if they start putting more emphasis in the religion of Islam than in focusing on their career or becoming wealthy or starting their own big business or something like that. And the thing is, it's not supposed to be the case. Which one is more important? I mean, you need to carve out time. You don't need to abandon your career, but you need to carve out time to make sure that you learn your religion properly. So these people, they're thinking the same way. Anything that helps you in your world, in your dunya, 100% support. Anything that takes you away from that goal, no. You're wasting your time. What's wrong with you? You have so much potential and you're wasting all that potential. And so they said the exact same thing to Salih. Now imagine how he felt. Like people are mocking him, making fun of him. You're a loser. You had so much potential. And so Salih obviously feels bad inside, but he has a job to do. So he overcomes that and he keeps on trying to convince them. He says, guys, you think you're going to live forever? Other civilizations have died. Other people have died before you. They had the palaces and they had gardens and they had all of these fancy things. They didn't live forever. Everyone is going to die at some point. So he reminded them that, look, I don't want any money from you. I'm just trying to tell you that what you're doing is wrong and you should stop this. So now the story changes. Very similar to the story of up until now, very similar to the story of Nuh, very similar to the story of Hud. But now the story switches. So the leaders, they said, okay, Salih, if you're telling us the truth, we want to see a miracle. So instead of like the people of Ad, just tell Allah to bring the punishment, they kind of gave him a chance. Said, if you're a true prophet, we want to see a miracle from Allah and then we're going to believe. Now a prophet cannot perform a miracle whenever he wants. Prophet is not like a magician. Okay, I'm going to pull this bunny out of my hat whenever I feel like it. The prophet can only do something when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants it to happen. So this time, Allah told him, say, Salih, I'm going to give you a miracle to show these people that you're a true prophet. He's going to make his life easier. So Salih asked them, he says, okay, what miracle would you like to see? What do you want to see? And they thought about it and they said, let's think of something really hard. Like something that no one can do. So they said, okay, see this mountain over here? We want to see a camel walk out of that mountain. And in fact, we don't just want it to be a camel. We want it to be a pregnant camel to prove that you didn't just like somehow stage this entire thing. We want it to have a child as well. So let's see something like that. And they're like, there's no way this can happen. Salih made dua. Allah said, I'm going to grant this. So out of this mountain, just solid rock, right? A camel walks out of the mountain. What is that from a scientific perspective? You have something that's non-living and something living comes out of it. You can take the most advanced scientific laboratories today. You put everyone there and you say, here's a giant boulder. Turn this boulder into a camel. You can't do it. The most advanced technology that exists cannot do that, no matter what. Can't even get close. So this is 100% clear-cut miracle from Allah. So they were shocked. All of a sudden it comes out, and they're looking, and they're like shocked. How can this happen? Normally, what would you think? You would think, okay, these people just saw a miracle in front of their eyes. They have to believe. I mean, how could you not believe when you saw a miracle right in front of your eyes? But these people, their arrogance and their hatred of Salih and their love for the idols and all these other spiritual diseases that they had prevented them from accepting Salih. And they're like embarrassed, but they're quiet, and they're kind of like, we don't know how you did that, but we still don't believe you. And so they're still grudgingly saying, no, we're still not going to accept this. But the difference with this miracle, it's not a one-time miracle. This camel now that they watched, it's literally walking around the city. So they're like looking at it every single day. And so now this is going to become an issue for them. So Salih told them, he says, you had the miracle, you got the miracle that you asked for. Now this camel, this is a special camel. You have to treat it well. Don't mess with it. You asked for this, and with every blessing comes a responsibility. Now you have a responsibility. So your responsibility is show respect to this camel, because this is a special camel that Allah has sent. And if you don't, you're going to be destroyed. This is your last chance. Allah is going to punish you if you mess with this camel. So this was a very large camel, and it needed to drink like all other animals. So when it would go to the well, the other animals, they had to wait for a really long time. All the other people's animals need to drink from the well too. So they'd have to wait. So Salih said, you know what? Let's make a schedule. One day, this camel's going to drink from the well. The next day, your camels can all drink from the well. So this was going okay. Everyone's like, okay, that's fine. After a while, people got impatient. They're getting frustrated. Why do we have to wait in line? It's like, this is the way human nature is. People don't want to wait. You know, if you're like, something's loading, your internet's a little bit slow, and you're like, why isn't this working? But the same thing. We don't want to have to wait. We don't like this. So they said, we are not happy with this camel. We got to do something about it. So now they're thinking, what should we do? You know, why can't our animals drink every single day? So they got mad, and they started plotting, we're going to get rid of this camel somehow. So some of the bad ones in the city, they went around and they said, who's going to help us get rid of this camel? So one guy, specifically one of the worst people, he got up and he said, I'm going to take care of it. Another guy got up, he got motivated. So sometimes when no one is stepping up, one person steps up, even for something bad or for something good, second person gets motivated and says, I'm going to help too. So a second guy got up and he said, I'm going to help you too. So the two of them, they wore a disguise so that if they get caught, no one will notice who did it. They wore a disguise. They went to the camel with their weapons, with their swords and everything. And one of them, because a camel is really large. A normal camel is large. This is a little bit larger than a normal camel. So they pulled out their sword. One of them cut its legs from the bottom. And when you cut the camel's legs, because you need to get to its torso, you have to bring it down because it's so high, it's so tall. So one of them cut the legs, and it fell down on the floor, and the other one finished it off by chopping its neck off or stabbing it in the neck or something like that. That's how a camel is killed. So now the camel that was sent by Allah is dead. And so what's going to happen? Salih finds out that they killed this camel, which was a miracle from Allah. So Allah told him what's going to happen. Allah said, tell your people that because you did this, you can enjoy your life for 3 more days, and then watch what happens to you. Allah's going to send the punishment, and that's it. So why did Allah give 3 days? It's like they should be destroyed right now. Allah gave 3 days as a final warning. Like, this is your last chance, that you got one shot to change your ways. And even 3 days, people are like, yeah, right, 3 days. Nothing's going to happen. We don't believe you. Even though they saw the miracle, they said nothing's going to happen. So they decided, instead of those 3 days, what they did at the end of the 3 days, so you know what, we're just going to get rid of Salih ourselves. In fact, we don't want to deal with this guy anymore. We're going to kill him, and we're going to kill his family. So there were 9 people who got together. They're assassins. And they said, we are going to go and we're going to kill him. We're going to kill out his whole family because his family became Muslim. They believed in him. And we're going to do it at nighttime. And they came up with the whole plan. We're going to do it at nighttime. And somebody comes and says, did you hear what happened? Salih is dead and the family's dead. We don't know what you're talking about. So maybe somebody came from outside the city or whatever. So they had a whole plan ready that they were going to assassinate and they're going to kill Prophet Salih, the way that they killed the camel already. But Allah protected Salih. He didn't allow that to happen. And He informed him and He said, take your family and take the few believers that you have and you need to leave the city. And so they did. And after the third day, imagine the third day at nighttime, they're like, see, Salih is a liar. It's been 3 days. Look around, nothing happened. So they went to sleep and they were very happy. When they woke up in the morning, that was the end of the third day. 3 days is done. So in the morning when they woke up, that's when it began. They heard this super loud noise. Allah just describes it as a sayha, like a super loud noise. Loud noise could be like some kind of thunder, like some kind of sonic boom. Like if you've ever been to an air show, or if you've ever had a jet fly over you, it's flying at the speed, like faster than the speed of sound, you're going to feel this vibration underneath you, right? If you were holding a cup of coffee or something like that, it would literally shake. You'd spill all your coffee because the way that it would shake because of the sound. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent this thunderous, maybe a mixture of an earthquake and like a sound wave, and it just ripped through the entire city. And so the storm, He didn't send a storm this time because their homes are built inside the mountain. So maybe they could have like a cover, maybe be a little bit protected inside the mountain. But this one literally goes through the mountain and literally rips up everything. So Allah sent this sound wave, thunder, earthquake, mixture of everything, and sent it through the entire city, and every single person was dead. The buildings were broken, except the mountains. The mountains remained, but the buildings, other buildings that they had built, they just got destroyed completely. And so Salih went back and he visited the city that he was in, the people of Thamud. And he went there and he saw the dead bodies of all the people. And he saw the buildings, and the buildings were broken and they were empty, and there was nobody left, and he was very sad. Because this is where he grew up, and this was his city, and this was his people. And he said to himself, he said, my people, I delivered the message from my Lord, and I warned you, but you didn't want to listen. And so the people of Thamud, unlike the people of Ad, nothing remains. There's nothing left of the people of Ad. But the people of Thamud, the remnants are still there in a place called Madain Salih. And so this destroyed city is still there in Arabia. It's like on the border, like not too far from Jordan, but it's in Arabia. And people actually can pass by and they can see what the city used to look like, and you can see how the city was completely destroyed. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he passed by the city when he was alive as well one day. And he passed by, and when he was going through, he told the people, he said that when you walk through a city that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destroyed, you guys should be crying. You should be weeping, because you should be thinking about what happened to these people and how they did not listen to the message. And then some of the companions, some of the Sahaba, there was a well over there. And they went and they got water from this well, and they started making dough, and they were going to make bread, and they were going to cook it. And the Prophet ﷺ told them after he found out, he said, do not use any of the water from this well, from anything around this area. This is an area where no one is, because Allah destroyed this and left it as a sign for us. No one is supposed to live there. No one is supposed to use the remnants of their water or something like that. So sadly, they're starting to make a tourist attraction out of this the last few years, but you're not really supposed to do that. So you're supposed to pass by, visit, if you visit, and you just think about how the city was destroyed, not to go on like roller coasters or like, Ferris wheel or something like that. So this is something that was left by Allah as a sign for people that those who worship idols, those who don't follow the guidance of Allah, this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deals with them. Okay, so I'll take a break. I don't know how we are on time, but I'll open it up for questions on these two prophets first. Are you doing Slido? Okay. From the audience until Slido launches up. Any questions? Yes. So Petra is considered among the extension of the people of Thamud, but they were not the specific site of them. You could visit it, yes. Yeah.
So you mentioned that when you ask the city that Allah destroyed, we should just remember the punishment and cry as we pass and whatnot. But does that apply to post Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? If a city is destroyed, such as Baghdad or something, can
No.
we draw that narrative?
So this only applies. People ask this question about the pyramids, ancient Egyptian pyramids and all that. This applies only specifically for this site. It doesn't apply to all other sites. So yeah, you can visit the pyramids and you can see what they did. But when you go and visit one of these civilizations, rather than just focusing on, wow, what an amazing advanced civilization. Yeah, the people of Ad and the people of Thamud were advanced. You can admire some of their, architecture or their contributions. Say Allah has given them so much power. But also think about how they're gone and how they've been destroyed and how all of that power and intelligence didn't do them any good. So rather than just focusing only on, wow, what amazing people, ancient Egyptian, ancient Babylon and all of that, we should be thinking about the lessons that are there as well. Is this about Saudi Al-Ula? Huh? Al-Ula? The region? Is that what it's called? It's called Madan Saleh. I don't know where did you hear that term? Oh, is that what it's called now? Yeah, I haven't checked it lately. Oh, okay. It's a touristy site? Okay, I've not looked into it, like for the last, I think, 6 years or so. Yeah. This is recent? Very recent? Oh, okay, yeah, no, I've not looked into it. When Allah gave the people of Saleh 3 days before He destroyed them, was it for them to repent? Yes. Allah is that merciful. Yes, Allah is that merciful. Even at the last minute, if somebody would have changed, Allah would have accepted their tawbah. But they did not want to change. So the people of Palestine, since it's only in Gaza, is that the Palestinian people's test? I don't understand the question. Okay, I'm wondering how it's connected to the story. Is it connected or okay? Okay. No, it's a test for everybody. It's not just a test for the people of Gaza. It's a test for the Muslim Ummah if they're gonna stand up to the oppressors who are doing all this bad stuff. So no, it's a test for both. Why were only a small group of people responsible for killing the camel, yet the entire society was punished? Yeah, that's because they did nothing about it. So basically, they were quiet. Either they were supporters or they were quiet. And because they did nothing, that means that they were supporting. And that's why the entire city gets punished, because they were all accomplices in what was going on with Saleh. Did Ad and Thamud genuinely not believe the message, or did they know it and choose to ignore? Is there a way for us to know? Okay. There's probably a mix of both. So there are people who genuinely didn't believe, but then there are also people who, the thing is, when it comes to rejection of the truth of a prophet, it's a moral rejection. Why do people reject the truth when they see it? It doesn't matter whether they believe it or not. It's the question is, why do they do that? Oftentimes there are spiritual barriers in their heart which prevent them from accepting that. Usually it's arrogance. It could be greed. It could be jealousy. They say, well, I want it to be the Prophet. Why the other person? There's always going to be some underlying spiritual root cause that's causing this problem. So we can't know exactly the details, but the most important thing is whether they knew it and choose to ignore. If somebody knows the truth and then they reject the truth, it's still the same as rejecting the message of Allah. So not believing or believing but rejecting is the same thing. If you look at Shaitan believed in Allah, but he rejected Allah. He's like right there, right? The people who saw a miracle in front of them, they see the miracle in their eyes, but then they're rejecting what this miracle means. So regardless of how it happens, the word kafir or kufr, it means one of the meanings of it is rejection. It doesn't just mean disbelief. It means that you're rejecting something that you should be accepting because it's so clearly true. In Islam, all people and animals should be treated fairly. Hindus worship animals. Why did this camel get special treatment? Okay, so because this was a miracle that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent. So that's why this animal got special treatment as it's almost a burden for them and a reminder for them to show them that Allah has given you this miracle. So you should take care of it. In Islam, we got that one already. Was Christianity around by this time yet, or was it just time of idol worship, jahili, no other religion? No, Christianity is way before this. Judaism, way before this. But again, we have other prophets that have been sent. So Nuh has been sent, Prophet Adam's children, maybe Idris, some other prophets. But no, there's no religions like we know them. I'd be upset if my camel was forced to be treated as a second-class camel unless I knew it was a command from Allah. Well, that's good. It's good. I'm glad you care about your camels. It's good. Did the camel speak? No, the camel did not talk like a human being. The camel was a normal camel. Do miracles create iman or only expose what's already in the heart? That's a good, very good, well-worded question. No, a miracle just exposes what's already in your heart. All right. What does violating the camel's rights teach about the sanctity of trust from Allah? Okay. Yes, an amana is something that you have to fulfill. So the camel was an amana from Allah and they violated the trust from Allah. How do you go from advanced civilization to defeated by consequences in 3 days? It's the same way that when Allah sent COVID-19, it destroyed entire cities, wiped them out. Or when Allah sends an earthquake on a major city, it can completely wipe them out. So Allah can send whatever He wants to any society, any community He wants, and it can be destroyed in one moment. So I'm not sure exactly what the purpose of that is, but yes, Allah can do anything. It's answered often, but if Allah knows all and how someone will respond to a test, what's the purpose of the test? Okay, so Allah doesn't exist in time. And so because Allah doesn't exist in time or space, we are the ones who are experiencing these events. Allah's not experiencing these events. So yeah, He knows everything. The purpose of the test is to see what we're going to do. And you say, well, Allah already knows. Yeah, Allah already knows, but He doesn't force people to do a particular deed. And this experience of time that we are experiencing, this is something that Allah is outside of. So we are the ones who are witnessing and experiencing that. That hopefully helps a little bit. But He wrote every action in advance. Yeah, this is a common question. I think I've addressed it a little while back. So the knowledge of Allah is different. See, people get confused when they say, well, Allah knows everything, therefore how is it that we have any choice in anything, in any matter? Because Allah already knows what's going to happen. Yeah, but you don't know what's going to happen, number one. Number two, Allah's knowledge doesn't mean that He forces you to choose something. So my teacher used to give me this example, and I like this example. So let's say, for example, you go to a coffee shop, and the coffee shop sells like really hard cold brew, and then they sell matcha. Okay? And let's say Maryam goes there, and I know that she likes matcha. All right, so we walk into the coffee shop, and she's about to order, and she's making a decision, right? And let's say they also have chocolate milk on the menu, and I know Yusuf is going to go with the chocolate milk, and I have 100% knowledge of this. The moment they walk up to the register, and they say, "What would you like, the coffee or the matcha or the chocolate milk?" One person chooses the matcha, one person chooses the chocolate milk. I knew what they're going to choose. When they decided at that moment that they're going to pick the matcha and they're going to pick the chocolate milk, did my knowledge force them to choose it? No. So knowledge of something in advance does not dictate or force the other person to make that choice. The same way that when Allah knows what's going to happen in the future, He knows what we're going to do because He has that knowledge. We don't have knowledge of what's going to happen, but I know what knowledge they're going to pick. So Allah's knowledge does not force the action when somebody chooses that themselves. And that's where the people get confused. They're like, but if Allah knows, then that means that the person didn't have any free will. No. Knowledge doesn't entail absence of free will. The same thing in the chocolate milk matcha example. And I'm getting tempted now to get some. So, all right. Why did so many of the messengers rise from Arabia? A lot of places of azab like the Dead Sea. Was there anything like this in other areas? Yeah. So there are prophets that are sent to every community. How many prophets were there? We don't know exactly, but we can estimate. There's a weak hadith which mentions over 100,000. So there's over 100,000 prophets. If Allah put the story of every prophet in the Quran, it would be the longest Taraweeh prayer ever. Right? It would be very, very difficult. So Allah chose specific ones that are mostly located around the area of where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was going to be sent. Because people can resonate and they kind of knew about those stories already. But were there prophets in the Americas? Absolutely. Were prophets sent to the Native Americans? Yes. Were prophets sent to the Aboriginal people of Australia? Absolutely. But we just don't have all of their stories. Allah gave us just a few stories, and within those stories He just gave us part of their life. We don't have the whole story because the Quran, from being 600 pages, would be 60,000 pages. And be very, very difficult to read. There would never be an Ameen party for anybody. Because they would never finish. Right? So it'd be very, very hard. So that's why. How can we avoid being too dependent on worldly things and our achievements like these people and instead depend on Allah? How can we avoid this mindset? So, this is a very deep question. One of the most important things we can do is just remind ourselves of these stories, for example. Stay in good company. It's very, very important to stay in good company. The more you hang around with people who are very materialistic, people who only focus on dunya and buying more stuff and all of that, you start to become like that. If you hang around people who remind you that, hey, you know what? We're going to have to give up all this stuff someday. We have a purpose in life. We have to fulfill that purpose. It's going to remind you as well that, hey, I shouldn't get too engrossed in this dunya, in this world. Otherwise, I'm going to be in trouble. So that's among the things. And you keep on reading, get reminders from the Quran, reminders from Hadith about this. The Quran is full of this. The Hadith, they're full of these reminders. So whenever we see a reminder, we should take it to heart and we should try to adjust our behavior. Last question. But it's not just knowledge. He did choose it in advance, right? The concept of what is maktub is that Allah wrote it. So the idea of maktub means, let's take the same example. Maktub means written. So Allah has written everything in advance. So we said Allah knows everything in advance. Allah wrote everything in advance, but at the same time, Allah did not force you to do everything in advance. So how do we reconcile these three things? This is where people start getting stuck. So we talked about the knowledge one, right? And now the thing that it's written down where people get confused. Take the same example. I go to the store, and before Yusuf walks up to the counter, I write down on a piece of paper, Yusuf is going to choose the chocolate milk. Maryam is going to choose the matcha. I fold it, and I have it written down. And as soon as they choose it, did it mean that because I wrote it down, I forced them to choose it? No. So writing it down doesn't remove free will. Doesn't mean that they didn't have the ability to choose on their own. Just because it was written, I know what's going to happen. I wrote down what's going to happen. I showed it to everyone. Look, this is exactly what's going to happen. When it happens, the moment that it happens, is there any sense that they had no ability to choose that? No, they chose it themselves. But I just knew what they were going to choose, and I wrote down what they're going to choose. That's exactly when it says Allah has written down what's going to happen. It doesn't mean that people did not have the choice when they made that decision. Okay, we'll leave it at that. Should we take more questions? Yeah, it's up to you, the organizer. 2 more questions? Okay. Doesn't mean, when you say willed, what does that mean, right? If willed means forced, then what does it mean? Yes, absolutely. And he already knew in advance what he's going to allow and not what he's not going to allow, but we don't know that, right? So Allah will allow things to happen. Yes, Allah is in control, right? But whatever He decides is gonna happen in advance, but that doesn't negate what we're doing. Right, so if you're trying to reconcile, well, how does Allah help us and like nudge us towards the good or allow us to sway or whatever it is, all of that is happening within a time that we're perceiving. Allah's outside of time. So like if you think about, well, what happened first and what happened last, there is no time factor for Allah. Right? Only for us, we view all of that from the perspective of time. And that's why we get confused about this issue. Right? So if you dwell too much on it and you think like, well, how can we reconcile this event happened prior to this and this one happened after that, you're not going to be able to reconcile it because Allah is not existing within time. It's like trying to imagine infinity. If you try to close your eyes and you imagine infinity, try your absolute best, you can't. Because it's not possible. You just see like vast space and you're thinking, but then there's a limit. When your mind will always have a limit. It has to stop somewhere. You can't imagine that it just keeps going. That's why in mathematics they just draw an arrow. Just keeps going forever, right? But you can't imagine that because we're always limited by time and by space. Allah is not limited by time and space. That's why we get stuck in trying to figure out, well, how do we wrap our mind around the details of the question? We get the general principle, but trying to get into the details, we can never grasp it because we're always stuck and bound by time and space. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Yes, Yusuf.
How many like prophets were there in total not mentioned in the Quran?
Not mentioned in the Quran? So we said probably over 100,000. You're probably thinking about chocolate milk during that time. Yes.
Since we're off topic, can I ask an off-topic question?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Just one. It's not very long. I was reading this weekend. I don't know when you're going to cover the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but I was reading that there's a woman called Al-Jawniya. Can you talk about who she is and why she's important?
We'll not go there right now.
Oh, okay.
Yes, another one.
Assalamu alaikum.
Maybe Salam.
In your coffee shop example, I agree that if you write it down, that doesn't affect the actual person's decision. But if you are the creator of the coffee shop and you are the person passing the judgment on what decision that person makes, doesn't that kind of add more variables into why it would matter and what the purpose of that whole exercise becomes?
I don't see. You're the founder of the coffee shop. How does that change anything? you happen to know what the other person likes. When they choose it, how does that mean that like you made them choose that specific thing? I don't see how it would make any difference. Hmm?
You make them so by customer.
You make them buy it?
No, I'm saying as a creator.
Yeah.
You even make the person who's buying. So you would know what the person
Yeah. So,
That's his point.
Like what's
Okay.
the purpose of the whole exercise? To make the person make the coffee shop. You know what they're gonna order. Like all of it. Why
the,
go through
purp-
the cycle?
the whole point of this is that we can't know how Allah knows everything, right? But what we can know is that when we say that Allah knows the future, in our limited scope, when we know the future, that doesn't dictate exactly what the future is going to be, right? So knowledge in and of itself is not something that is removing a person's ability to make a choice. And that's what the coffee shop example gives. Because when we say Allah has knowledge of everything, people get confused. They're like, well, if He has knowledge of everything, then everything must be forced. We have, yes, the knowledge of a creator is very different than the knowledge of a human being, which could, but let's just say for the purpose of argument, I have 100% certainty that He's going to choose this specific thing. I have 100% knowledge only on this topic. Does my knowledge dictate the choice of that person? It does not. So therefore, if we expand that and say knowledge as a principle, even when it comes to the Creator, the Creator's knowledge does not dictate the decision that the person is going to make. That's the example. That's the purpose of the example. One more question? Okay, one last question.
Am I allowed to?
Go ahead.
Okay. This is kind of off topic, except before anyone was born, like, what were we? Like where were we?
We were like, according to scholar, it doesn't say specifically, but according to Muslim scholars, we were souls in a spiritual world.
Except like, if we were souls, do souls like see stuff?
We have no idea.
If they can't see,
Hmm.
then because like I don't remember what it looked like, so like
We'll discuss the
Yeah.
rest of that on the way home. Okay, inshallah. One more question. Okay.
Can I not use it?
No, Mike. Okay. Hmm. 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 You could say that, right? That's the easier thing. So you could say it for both, but maybe if you wanted to make a differentiation because one of them involves no choice, yeah, you could put it that way. Okay, subhanakallahumma bihamdik ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.